Radio TV Phono Nut here, and I recently went to an estate sale. This was on the last day. No, it was I think it must have been like a 3-day sale, and this was the second day. And one of the flea market vendors that I sometimes get stuff from messaged me on Facebook and showed me a picture of some electronics. The thing she sent me a picture of was a Lafayette signal generator, probably from the early 60s, a Superior tube tester from about the same time period, and a mid-70s Technics SL1400 turntable. So, and this stuff was at an estate sale that she was helping out with, so I called a friend of mine who's been taking me to these sales, and I told him about it. And he said, well, I'm delivering medicine right now. He works for a drugstore as a courier, delivering medicine to people who, for whatever reason, can't come to the drugstore and pick it up. So he said he would go by the sale and check it out and let me know what they had. So he called me later and he said, you know, they've got the stuff that you mentioned, and they've got a lot more stuff. He said you can have all of the electronics for 30 bucks for everything. So I said, do you mind paying for the stuff for me? And that way he won't sell it to anybody else. And he said, sure, that won't be a problem. And you know, then we'll come back over here tomorrow and pick it up. So that's what we did. And it was a lot more stuff than I anticipated. And why is this battery flashing dead? I just charged it. I don't know, we'll just let it flash until it dies. I don't know what's going on with this thing. But anyway, there was a lot more than I anticipated. I well got my $30 worth. In fact, our truck, or his truck I should say, looked like something off of an episode of Sanford & Son. Alright, we're switching over to another camera. While that one charges, we're going to try again. But anyway, as part of the stuff, and let me put this dog up. I'm tired of hearing him bark. I'm sure you are too. But anyway, part of the stuff that was in this load was 3 televisions. This little 9-inch Panasonic that was designed to be mounted under a counter. This TV was actually in the laundry room, and I think the swivel mount is removable. And then that set's from 1995, and then we have this 19-inch Sharp from '88, and then we have this 27-inch Apex from 2001. Now, I really didn't want the TVs, but they were part of the deal, so I took them. And if I'm lucky, maybe I can fix them up and unload them on a retro video gamer. I might put retro gaming in the title, but it won't take much money to get them out of my possession, I can tell you. The little Panasonic, which we're going to focus on today, when I first turned it on, it had a raster, and I connected a signal to it, and the picture was somewhat washed out. So I just let it play a while, and then whenever I came back to check on it, we had vertical deflection issues. It was the bottom half of the screen was drawn up, and then the top half was stretched out, so that's probably caps. So we're going to turn it on now and see what happens from a cold start. Okay. Why are we not doing anything? Maybe we're not connected to this TV. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. We had it connected to the Sharp set. Let's try it again.
They only place added burden on patients seeking them.
It didn't take long for anti-abortion activists to find Alamo Women's Health in Carbondale.
Yeah, you can see it's kind of stretched here.
Check-in signs near the entrance of the abortion clinic, directing patients to their facility. difficulty instead.
It is.
And I think after it warms up, it's probably going to get worse. So that's going to be a cap problem, most likely. And by 95, I don't remember if they were still using the purple Puco-matic capacitors in these Panasonic sets, but if they are, that's probably what the trouble is. And it's starting to crawl up some from the bottom. And let's turn it off and get it open. I don't want that bright line to burn the phosphor. Alright, here we are with the back removed, and I see one purple Puco-matic capacitor. That looks like probably a B+ filter. The section we need to concentrate on is this section up here where the vertical output IC is. And just eyeballing it, I see a little bit of corrosion or rust or whatever on this tuner shield, and that's probably from this being in a laundry room where it can often get, well, there's obviously moisture there, and like when you've got a dryer running and if it's not vented properly and moist air coming out of it, that can cause this. So yeah, we're just going to open this up. If we see any bad solder connections, we'll fix those, and then we'll change any capacitors that need to go, and then that ought to take care of this. Well, we had a little storm come up, so we're going to have to put this on hold for a little while. Well, we're back on the good camera. Let's see if the battery will hold this time. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be deviating from TV repair to air conditioner repair. Had a storm rolling through here a while ago, and as a result, the lights were flickering and dimming out and coming back on and flickering and dimming out. And then the next thing I knew, even inside the house, I could hear what sounded like the compressor on the outdoor condensing unit for the air conditioner trying to restart. And you know how compressors are. They don't take too kindly to low or no voltage and then an immediate reapplication of power. That just pisses them off. So I ran back there to turn the thermostat off, and you know how it is with these semi-modern air conditioner units. I say semi-modern because this one's 21 years old. They just don't go off when you turn the switch to off. It has to sit there and run through the cycle, and then it finally shuts off. Well, I let it stay off for about 30 minutes, turned it back on, and both the indoor and outdoor fans came on, but I'm not hearing any activity whatsoever from the compressor. So when the rain and the storming gets out of here, which might be tomorrow, I'm going to be playing air conditioner troubleshooter, and hopefully the compressor didn't get destroyed, because if it did, there won't be a new central air conditioner installed, I can promise you. Back in 2002, when that was put in, that system was $2,000. 21 years later, and with everything inflated like it is today, heaven only knows what it'll cost. So if it comes down to that, we'll be going back to window shakers over here, which is what I was raised with. Dad didn't believe in central air because he said if it goes out, you lose all cooling. Whereas if you have multiple window shakers, and if one of them goes bad, then you've still got some cooling in your house. Well, in '96, the original American Standard natural gas furnace from 1963 was on its last leg, so he finally agreed to have a central heat and air system put in. And he installed a Janitrol, which I'm sure was I've heard of the brand, but I'm sure he got it at a bargain basement price, and that system was a piece of junk from the day it was put in, both in and out of warranty. Somebody was all the time working on it. And then finally in 2002 it developed a coil leak, and that's when we just decided enough's enough, and I had the current ream system put in, which has been relatively trouble-free. I think it got a new circuit board under warranty, but other than that, it's just basically been capacitors and contactors, and I think they had to replace the dryer on it one time. It rusted and sprung a leak, and we lost all the most of the refrigerant. That wasn't a cheap fix, but cheaper than a new system. But I think we can troubleshoot and find out what's going on from the power fluctuation. And like I said, hopefully the compressor didn't get destroyed. Hopefully it's something I can fix inexpensively, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow or whenever I can get on it, when the weather will allow. I know growing up, when my grandparents adopted me, they had probably a mid to late 60s Whirlpool 220 volt unit in the den, and then in their bedroom they had a circa 63 Sears cold spot that was built by Whirlpool. That thing would run you out of there. And then whenever I came along, Dad bought a Sears Kenmore unit for my room. I don't know who made it, but I don't think it was a Whirlpool. Well, one night the big 220 volt Whirlpool, it just abruptly shut off and wouldn't come back on, and Mama called a place that sold and repaired air conditioners, and they told my mother that the compressor was shot and that she'd be better off buying a new unit. Now, whether it really was is anybody's guess. They could have just told her that, just trying to sell a new unit, which we bought a new one from them. But that particular newer Whirlpool from 83 or 84 did not cool nearly as well as the older one, and that particular Whirlpool lost its compressor under warranty. And once they replaced the compressor, I don't think it worked as good as it did beforehand. But we kept that one for years, until in '96 we got the central unit, and that's when Dad gave all the window shakers to the guy who installed the new system, and he was very happy to get them, especially that old cold spot from '63. He said they don't make them like this anymore. Well, that was in '96, and you look at the ones today from 2023, and they're not made as well as the ones from '96. Now, these newer ones may be more energy efficient. I don't know. Hadn't really looked into them that much. I'm just going by what I hear. But I can tell you these newer ones most likely do not cool as good as those older ones did. So if they don't cool as good as the older ones did, then in my mind, you're really not saving a whole lot. Yeah, here's the hole where the 220 volt unit was, and of course when we took the air conditioner out, my mother turned this into a window and a place to display this stained glass thing, or fake stained glass thing, or whatever it is. There's the 220 volt outlet, which I think is still live, so if it comes down to it, this might be reconverted into an air conditioner receptacle. And I do believe this outlet is still live. Yep, the outlet's still hot. I measure 245 volts on it, so it's ready to go in case we need it. So right now it looks like we're back to attic fan mode, and this is the original fan that was put in the house in 1963. And the only thing I know of that's ever been done to it, a couple of belts have been replaced over the years, but that's about it. So let's see if it'll still work for us. And there it goes. Yeah, it's not raining at the moment, so while it's not raining, we're going to take advantage of that and try to bring some cooler air in here. And another observation I'd like to make about air conditioners is the capacitors. They don't seem to hold up as well as the older ones did. Now, that's something we normally don't say, especially whenever it comes to capacitors used in our consumer electronics, because generally speaking, the new ones are far superior to the older ones. But when it comes to these motor run capacitors, I think the older ones held up better. I know the original one in the Ream system, it lasted what, 17, 18 years, and then I had to replace it, and then that one only lasted about 2 or 3 years, and then it died. And whenever it died, it also blew one of the fuses. And I remember checking the resistance of the compressor, and it seemed low to me, but not being familiar with what it's supposed to read, I called in a service company to come fix it, and as it turns out, the compressor was okay, so he just had to replace the capacitor and the fuse, and they didn't have the proper capacitor, so he had to take 2 capacitors and make one, so to speak. And then while he was at it, he washed out the coil and got us back in business $400 and something later, and that was last June, I believe. So I'm gonna check it out myself first chance I get and see if we can find out what the problem is. Of course, I don't begrudge these air conditioning service companies for what they charge. They're in business to make money, and that's just the way it is. They're not out there to provide free service, but when it's something I'm capable of doing myself, then I think I should do it. And then if it turns into be something that I don't feel comfortable with, that's when I'll call in somebody else. But I think in the old days, those older capacitors, back when they had PCB oil in them, I think those held up better. That's why you still see some of these old motor run capacitors from the 60s and 70s that are still kicking, and you see these new capacitors from China that, like with mine, lasted a couple of years and that was it. Okay, so I decided to move the TV inside to work on it tonight. We'll tackle the air conditioner tomorrow. And I believe we found our culprit. This cap here checked bad for ESR, and then whenever I removed it, as you can see, one lead just pulled out of it. So let's see what value this is and go fetch one up. 3.3, so that one shouldn't be too hard to locate. Let's go get one. Alright, I replaced that 3.3 microfarad cap in the vertical circuit. It was definitely bad. I resoldered the vertical IC. I resoldered the horizontal drive transformer as well as the horizontal output transistor, and there were a few 2 and 3 watt power resistors that were definitely loose. I could move the part and feel the component lead wiggling on the other side of the circuit board, so that's definitely a no-no. Common problem with Panasonics. Resoldered a few other things. It was questionable. And I replaced the boost filter, the 22 microfarad 160 volt cap that's in the video, the B plus line to the off of the flyback to the video output stage. The original capacitor was good, but that's such a high failure part, I just went ahead and changed it. And the same goes for the 33 microfarad regulated B plus filter capacitor. That was the purple, this purple Pissomatic capacitor. It doesn't look really questionable right now, but might as well go ahead and get rid of it before it becomes questionable. Now we're ready to slide everything back in the case and fire it up and see if it works. And I also resoldered the CRT socket in these power resistors on the CRT neck board. Alright, I guess now we're ready to plug it in. Alright, we're plugged in. Let's see if it goes or blows. Well, we have high voltage and nothing is blown up yet. That's good. And it looks like we have a raster. So let's go get a converter box and put on this and see what it looks like. Alright, we're connected to the DTV box and going out of focus. So let's see what happens.
7.9% of long-haul drivers, with 70% of U.S. goods shipped by truck. Government, private companies, and industry groups are desperate for more drivers.
Well, that looks pretty good. Let's Oh, him. I probably need to get him off of there for it.
Through their trucking action plan, the Biden administration
Before we blow
has
up
made several
something.
policy changes to boost trucker jobs, including. Hello?
Hello, this is Chemical Bank. Just wanted you to know that your checking account is overdrawn.
Chemical Bank?
Infection or symptoms, had a vaccine or plan to.
A Reuben.
Alright, we'll just let this play a while, and if it doesn't screw up, then we'll button it up and it'll be good to go. Yeah, that's got a pretty decent picture. Now the volume could probably stand to be a little louder, but then again, this is what's considered a personal TV, so
Plus $275 for the airfare. What the hell?
and it's got about a 1-inch speaker in it, so you know that's probably about as loud as it was ever meant to get.
I can't give you an escort to...
Wait.
Get paid to lose weight, just like... Sponsored by George Spink's law firm.
Yeah, as far as these little small screen color sets, even these later ones I think will probably be collectible one day. However, these newer ones, you're not going to keep those going forever like you will something like a black and white from 1954. And the reason being, yes, you will encounter some situations where the black and white from 1954 is going to be sidelined because you'll occasionally run into that bad part that you can't substitute anything else for. But with these newer solid state sets like this that are IC based, there's going to become a time when something dies that you're not going to be able to get, and that's going to be the end of the TV.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Williams.
Now,
tonight we show you
if you can keep lightning away from the set, the ICs will stand a better chance of survival, but they have been known to fail on their own. But what's more likely to fail is the flyback transformer, which in these newer sets, you have the flyback transformer itself, the focus divider, the screen and focus controls, and the high voltage rectifier / tripler, all built into the same package. And over time, you know, they absorb moisture, the insulation develops little micro cracks, and sooner or later they're just going to go snap, crackle, pop. And when that happens, it's probably going to be the end of the TV unless you get lucky enough to find a flyback somewhere. And with the old tube sets, you can sometimes find something that you can fake it and make the TV work, but not so much with these later solid state ones now.
City crews were clearing roads after
back in the 90s and early 2000s, I could pretty much get any flyback I needed for an 80s and 90s solid state TV, because if I couldn't get an original, I could usually get a generic that would work. But now that solid state TV repair has basically fallen to the wayside with flat screens taking over, I don't know of anybody making generic flyback transformers for these things. So, as far as this flyback in this set, it might pop before I hit the stop button on the camera, or it might go for another 20 years, who knows. But I can tell you 1980s Panasonic and Quasar flybacks, they like to go snap, crackle, pop. I remember a GE set that I found on the side of the road one time, and it had a Matsushita chassis in it. It was a 17-inch color set, and it had a faulty power switch. Well, good, this will be a simple fix. Replaced the power switch, set was working great. It was sitting on my bench playing. I was letting it run before I put the back on it. All of a sudden, before I could really react, the picture pulled in on the side, the horizontal fell out of sync, and before I could hit the power button, the flyback transformer literally popped and smoked. And I took about a week to get the stench out of my shop. And of course, when the flyback went, it took the horizontal output and the regulator too. I still ended up fixing the TV, but
this week, Southeast High School
replacing that flyback transformer, that cut into my profit a bit. Would I do that today? No, not unless it was something that I planned on keeping. And except for the vertical size control and the focus and screen controls, everything else appears to be adjusted through a service menu, and in order to access that, I would need to either find a service manual online, a PDF, or a printed service manual, and there's really no need for that because it looks acceptable like it is, and unless it presents any more problems, the back's going back on it, and that's going to be it. I'm trying to get this swivel mount off. I've already had plastic pieces break off of it. I had some break off of it when I was trying to dismount the set from the cabinet at the estate sale.
Don't suffer another day with me.
I don't know how this is supposed to come off, but it's not working too well. This is proving to be more difficult than I actually repairing the television. Alright, I gave it a good jerk and it finally came out, but this plastic is getting old and brittle, and I just don't know how good of an idea it would be to mount this under a cabinet anymore. Just use it for a tabletop TV. Alright, we're back together, cleaned up. It's got a decent picture on it. As far as this swivel mount, I'll put it somewhere and put these little broke pieces in a little bag, but I really don't foresee needing that. It also has a swivel turntable on the bottom where you can turn the television to your preferred viewing angle.
They never need to physically touch that child. Alicia's personal story to advocacy began in 2000. Portman says the cyber criminal.
Alright, I'm taking you to the other camera because I think it does a little bit better job with the frame rate.
They ask for it.
To Jesse Harris, we sold you a revolver. We could bring him.
Of course, there's no substitute for a face-to-face viewing, but I think you get the idea that the TV's working pretty good. And I'm just going to let it run, because if it's going to mess up, it will wait to do it until after we've installed the back, which we've already done. So we'll just let it go and see what it does. And hopefully there'll be no more problems, and then tomorrow, if weather permits, we will tackle the air conditioner and see why the compressor's not kicking on. Alright, it's a new day and I've got fantastic news about the air conditioner. I turned it on this morning as I was getting ready to troubleshoot it, and it cranked up and is cooling just fine. So I think what happened is inside the compressor there's a safety device that opens the circuit in the event of an overload, and I believe that's what happened. That device opened and it took a long time for it to reset, and thinking back, I believe that happened one other time, so that's great. That makes my day that I don't have to be faced with dealing with an air conditioner and possibly replacing an air conditioner. Here's the remote for that set. As you can see, somebody has it wrapped in saran wrap, and you can see all the crud on the back. Looks like batteries probably leaked inside of it, so that'll probably be the end of that remote. Yeah, this thing's leaking big time. What do you want to bet? How much money you want to bet it has Duracell batteries in it? And I finally got the back off, and this looks nutritious, doesn't it? And yep, I was right, Duracells. So yeah, another casualty because of Duracell batteries. Alright, these have an expiration date or best if used by date or whatever of 2017. Surprisingly, the contacts on the remote are not as cruddy as I figured they would, but We still don't know what might have got inside the remote.
Trump now facing 2 new
Oh, the view is still on. I thought that was
involving
going away. We better get it off of that. That might cause our TV to blow up.
We've been married for 5 years.
Choking on the smoke. Now wait a minute.
That's better. Emergency.
To get so defensive just because this ridiculous.
All right. Well, I guess that's about all I've got for this video.